An interesting Hanukkah custom that was very commonplace up to about 20 years ago has been disappearing. What is that custom? I'm going to read from Keteh Shem Tov, Rabbi Shem Tov Gagin, who mentioned many times before. He writes as this: "Ube'eretz Yisrael, veSuria, vetogarma, Misraim, ve'arei ha'ma'arab, להדליק אחר שבירך להדליק נר חנוכה ובעוד שהולך ומדליק מברך הברכות האחרונות." On the nights of Hanukkah, when you light, you first say the beracha of the Hadlik ner Hanukkah, and then you immediately begin lighting. And as you are lighting, you continue and say the rest of the berachot, meaning Sha'asa Nisim, or on the first night Sha'asa Nisim, and She'ahiyanu. And then obviously afterwards you would continue with Hanerot Halalu and Mizmor Shir Hanukkah Bayit LeDavid. In recent years, we see that people have abandoned this minhag. I think it's more that they've forgotten the minhag, because many books of halacha say to say all three berachot, or all two berachot, depending on what night it is, prior to lighting. And they have forgotten their custom, or they haven't paid attention to it. This custom, as we see, is well documented in Keteh Shem Tov. Rabbi Obadiah Hedaya, in his De'ah V'Heskel, volume 7, item number 17, discusses over there as well. This is based upon the Rashash, meaning based upon the Mekubalim. The Mekubalim say that that is the proper way, and that was the minhag in Yeshivat Bet El of Yerushalayim, as attested to in the book Debrei Shalom. Now, there are those who say, well, what was the minhag in Halab? So we just saw that Rabbi Shem Tov Gagin tells us that this was the custom in Israel, in Syria, in Turkey, in Egypt, in North Africa. In other words, right the gamut of the Middle East and North Africa, this was the custom. But was it everybody's custom? No, it probably wasn't everybody's custom. There were those who did otherwise. And we have testimony in Shulchan HaMelech of Rabbi Lanyado from Halab, where he doesn't tell us the exact custom, but he does quote Muram, which basically is usually the Ashkenazi practices of lighting after all the berachot, and he brings that over there, something he generally doesn't do. So that may be an indication that was the minhag in Halab. Later on, the Ben Ish Hai from Baghdad, Iraq, wrote to say the beracha after all three berachot. In later years, especially in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, the Ben Ish Hai became very popular in Halab, and we see in the writings of Rabbi Yitzhak Shehebar, who was the rabbi of the Halabi community in Argentina. He writes in his writings that the minhag is to make the all three berachot and then light. So we see even in Halab there may have been two minhagim. Why do I know that at least we did the minhag, the first minhag, as that quoted by Keteh Shem Tov, of doing one beracha and then lighting? Because that was the common practice throughout the community. In every synagogue, you would see when they would light, first beracha would be said, and then the lighting would begin. This morning, in fact, a number of people came up to me and said, I remember my father always said the first beracha and then he lit. And these are all mainstream families that you know, and this was the custom, the prevalent custom. Now, this is not a custom that's only based upon Kabbalah. In fact, we could trace it all the way as far back as Masechet Sofrim, which was written in the 8th century, Eretz Yisrael, where they write over there that practice is to make the beracha of the Hadlik ner Hanukkah and to light. And after that, listen to this, after the first beracha and lighting, then say Hanerot Halalu, then say She'ahiyanu, and then finally say Sha'asa Nisim La'abotenu. So obviously they don't seem that we have to connect the berachot of She'ahiyanu and Sha'asa Nisim directly to the lighting, rather the lighting and then Hanerot Halalu. So therefore our practice, and the common practice of making the beracha of the Hadlik ner Hanukkah and then immediately lighting, and then continuing with the other brachot, followed by Hanerot Halalu and Mizmor Hanukkah, Tabayat David, is very, very well established and very, very old, based upon both the Peshat, the simple rendition of the Halakha, as well as the Sod, the Kabbalah, the mystical rendition. Happy Hanukkah.